Good morning students. Today in the osteology class we are going to study the mandible bone. The mandible is the largest and strongest bone in the face and presents a horseshoe shaped body. From the posterior ends of this body projects these two rami which projects upwards from the posterior aspect or the posterior end of the body. These are called as the right and the left ramus or rami. Now this body of the mandible, it presents an external surface, an internal surface, an alveolar border or the upper border or the alveolar arch which bears the sockets for different teeth, and below we have an inferior surface which is called as the base of the mandible. Now on the over here we can see there is a faint ridge in the midline. This faint ridge which is there in the midline, it marks the line of fusion between the two halves of the body and ends below on the summit to form a triangular bony protuberance or the triangular median protuberance. Now this faint ridge over here, this is called as symphysis menti because it is in the midline. It is not a cartilaginous joint but it is covered by the fibrocartilage. Now this symphysis menti, it ends below to form a large triangular protuberance. So this large triangular median protuberance, it is called as the mental protuberance. Inferolateral to this mental protuberance, there are two mental tubercles. So inferolateral to this mental protuberance, these are the two mental tubercles inferolaterally. Now over here you can see these are the incisor teeth. So we have the medial incisor teeth, we have the lateral incisor teeth, we have the canine, this is a canine, and first and second premolars and the three molars. So first of all we have the incisors, the medial and lateral incisor, then we have the canines, then we have the first and second premolars and the molars. So between the first and second premolars, just below this space between these two first and second premolars, we have a foramen. This is called as the mental foramen. This mental foramen, it transmits the mental nerves and vessels. So over here you can see a oblique line. This is called as an oblique line which extends from the lower part of the anterior border of the ramus up to this mental tubercle or up to this mental foramen. This is the oblique line which is seen on the external surface. So on the external surface, first of all you see this mental foramen which transmits the mental nerves and vessels, and then you have this mental protuberance which is the lower triangular median prominent protuberance which is called as the mental protuberance, and inferolateral to that we have the mental tubercles. Now just above this protuberance, below these central incisive teeth, we have two depressions. So these two depressions over here, they are called as incisive fossa. The incisive fossa, it gives origin to the mentalis muscle and few slips of the orbicularis oris muscle. So this incisive fossa, it gives origin to two things, that is, it gives origin to the mentalis muscle and few slips of the orbicularis oris muscle. Now this oblique line which is seen along the external surface of the body of the mandible, along this part it gives origin to the buccinator muscle, and in front just below the level of this mental foramen, it gives origin to two muscles, the depressor anguli oris and the depressor labii inferioris. So this oblique line, it gives origin to few muscles. This towards just continuing with the anterior border of the rami, this part it gives origin to the buccinator muscle, and then in front of this oblique line, just below the level of this mental foramen, here in this part it gives origin to the depressor anguli oris and the depressor labii inferioris. Now just you see this is the base of the mandible. Just below now here in the base of the mandible over here you can see two depressed areas. This is called as the digastric fossa which gives origin to the anterior belly of the digastric. This is situated at the base of this mandible. Over here we have the two depressed areas or pits for the origin of the anterior belly of the digastric muscle. This was about the external surface, which has the incisive fossa, which has this protuberance, which is the mental protuberance, mental tubercles, the oblique line, which gives origin to the buccinator over here, and in front to the depressor anguli oris and depressor labii inferioris below the level of the mental foramen, and the mental foramen, it transmits the mental nerves and the vessels. Now this is the alveolar arch or the alveolar border, upper border, lower border, which is the base. Moving on to the internal surface. Now the internal surface, first of all, in the internal surface of the body, over here you can see towards the posterior aspect of the symphysis menti. This was the symphysis menti, this faint ridge which is formed by the fusion of these two halves of the body of the mandible. Now on the posterior aspect of it, over here you can see there are 4 tubercles. So there are 4 elevations, rounded elevations. The upper 2 are called as superior genial tubercles, and the lower ones, which are not clearly marked, are called as inferior genial tubercles. The superior genial tubercles and inferior genial tubercles, also called as the mental spines. The superior genial tubercles, they give origin to the genioglossus muscle, and the inferior genial tubercles, they give origin to the geniohyoid muscles. Moving on to the ramus of the mandible. So ramus of the mandible, which is one on either side, which are upward projections from the posterior aspect of the body of the mandible, one on either side. This ramus, it has an upper border which is thin and is also called as mandibular notch, and an inferior border. So it has an upper border, lower border. It has an anterior border. This is the anterior border in front, and a posterior border. Now the anterior border on the mandibular notch, it transmits the mesenteric nerves and the vessels. It also has a lateral surface or the outer surface, and the inner surface or the medial surface. So the ramus, it has the upper border, the lower border, anterior border, posterior border, lateral surface which is flattened and presents various oblique ridges, and a medial surface. And it also presents these two processes. So in the anterosuperior orientation, we have this triangular flattened upward projection, which is called as the coronoid process. So anterosuperiorly we have the coronoid process, and posterior-superiorly we have this process which has, you see at the upper surface of this process, this is called as, first of all, the condyloid process. This is the coronoid process in the anterosuperior orientation, and in the posterior-superior orientation we have the condyloid process. Its upper surface, it has a rounded shape, and from either side it is expanded. This is called as the head of the mandible. Now this head of the mandible, it articulates with the mandibular fossa of the temporal joint to form temporomandibular joint. This is very important. So this condyloid process, it also has various surfaces. It has an anterior surface, lateral surface, medial surface. So a coronoid process, this coronoid process over here, this coronoid process, it has an apex. You can see this is the apex. It has an anterior border in front, a posterior border, okay, and this is the medial surface and the lateral surface of the coronoid process. Now the anterior border of this coronoid process, it is continuous with the anterior border of the ramus of the mandible, and the posterior border of this coronoid process, it is bounded by this mandibular notch or the upper border of the ramus, and this is the lateral surface and the medial surface. Now this coronoid process, it gives attachment, this coronoid process, along with its apex, medial surface, this is the medial surface, apex, and a part of its anterior border which extends with the anterior border of the ramus. This all, it gives attachment to it gives origin to the temporalis muscle. So important part over here is that this mandible, it gives insertions to 4 muscles of the mastication, which involves the temporalis muscle, the lateral pterygoid, the medial pterygoid, and the masseter. So 4 muscles being, first of all, the masseter, it takes in the insertion of the masseter is on the lateral surface of this ramus of the mandible. It takes the masseter muscle, it gets inserted onto the lateral surface, leaving apart the posterior superior part. So if this is the lateral part of the ramus, here there is insertion of the masseter muscle leaving the posterior superior part, which is covered by the parotid gland. So here we have the insertion of the masseter muscle. The medial pterygoid, it gets inserted. Now, first of all, you have to see this is the ramus of the mandible. This is the lateral surface and this is the medial surface. Now, on the medial surface, you see a foramen over here. This is called as the mandibular foramen. So, this is the mandibular foramen which transmits the inferior alveolar nerves and vessels. And just below to this mandibular foramen, there is the mylohyoid groove. This mandibular foramen, it passes through the mandibular canal internally, and outside it opens into this mental foramen. So the mandibular foramen which passes through the mandibular canal internally and then finally opens outside at this mental foramen. Now this mandibular foramen, onto the anterior margin of this mandibular foramen, you see there is a presentation of a tongue-like projection. So it presents a tongue-like projection which is called as lingula, and this lingula, it gives attachment to the sphenomandibular ligament. So this is the lingula, which is the tongue-shaped projection. Now just below and behind this mandibular foramen or this mylohyoid line, we see there is a roughened area. Now this roughened area, this gives origin to the medial pterygoid muscle. So masseter muscle origin is on the lateral aspect of the ramus of the mandible, and the medial pterygoid is on the internal surface of the medial surface of the ramus. Over here, this roughened area, this gives insertion to the medial pterygoid. Now comes the lateral pterygoid. As we have discussed this condyloid process, this is the head of the condyloid process, and then below it we see this is the constricted part below it, which is called as the neck of the mandible. Now this neck of the mandible, it has this is the anterior surface. The anterior surface of the neck of the mandible presents a hollowed out. Now over here also you see a depressed area. This is called as the pterygoid fovea. So this pterygoid fovea, in this pterygoid fovea, there is insertion of the lateral pterygoid. So medial pterygoid over here in this roughened area, this is for the lateral pterygoid, this is the masseter, and temporalis, as we have discussed in the coronoid process, it involves the apex, the medial surface and the anterior border, which continues with the anterior border of the ramus. This gives insertion to the temporalis. So 4 muscles of mastication, one is the temporalis, lateral pterygoid, medial pterygoid and the masseter. Moving on to the internal surface, moving on to the medial surface of the ramus of the mandible. Over here, you can see, as discussed before, this mandibular fossa, it transmits the inferior alveolar nerves and vessels. This is the mylohyoid groove, which is below to this mandibular fossa. This transmits the mylohyoid nerves and the vessels. Now, this over here you see this is called as a mylohyoid line. So this mylohyoid line, which is seen on the internal surface, this mylohyoid line, it gives origin to the mylohyoid muscle. Now there are various ligaments which are attached to the mandible. First of all, we have, now you see this is the posterior border of the ramus. This is the posterior border of the ramus and this is the base of the mandible. Now this, or the lower border of the ramus. So lower border, it continues with the posterior border of the ramus via this angle. This is called as the angle of the mandible. So this angle of the mandible over here, this gives attachment to the stylomandibular ligament. So stylomandibular ligament is attached to the angle of the mandible. To the anterior margin of the lingula is attached the sphenomandibular ligament. So these two ligaments. And to this is the lateral surface of the neck of the mandible. Here is attached the lateral ligament of the temporomandibular joint. And over here I have discussed, this is the head of the mandible, this is the neck of the mandible. On the head of the mandible, it articulates with the temporal fossa of the temporal bone. So it articulates, this head of the mandible articulates with the temporal bone to form temporomandibular joint. And over here we see this is the pterygoid fovea for the insertion of the lateral pterygoid muscle. Now this mandibular notch, it transmits the mesenteric nerves and the vessels. Moving on to the nerves and art. Now you see this is the mylohyoid groove. mylohyoid groove. Just in front of this mylohyoid groove, you see this part, it is in relation to the lingual nerve. So it gives it this part, it is in relation with the lingual nerve. Over here you see this is the mandibular foramen. Now just here you can see just above and behind this mandibular foramen, this part, it is in relation with the maxillary artery. And this is the maxillary artery. This part is in relation with the maxillary artery, and over here you see this is the medial surface of the neck of the mandible, or this part. This is in relation with the superficial temporal artery and the auriculotemporal nerve. So we have the lingual nerve just above the mylohyoid groove, behind the third molar tooth. You know, this is the mylohyoid line. Mylohyoid line, it gives origin to the mylohyoid muscle, and just as you move towards its posterior aspect and above, just behind this third molar tooth, you see this part, it gives origin to few fibers of the superior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, and also gives attachment to the pterygomandibular raphe. So the mylohyoid line, it gives attachment to the mylohyoid muscle, and towards its posterior aspect and above to it, just behind this third molar tooth, you see it gives origin to the few fibers of the superior constrictor muscles of the pharynx and the pterygomandibular raphe. Moving on to the mylohyoid line. Just below this mylohyoid line, you see this hollowed out area. This is called as the submandibular fossa, for the lodgement of the submandibular salivary glands. And above this mylohyoid line, you see there is again a hollowed out area for the lodgement of the sublingual salivary glands. This is the sublingual fossa above the mylohyoid line, and below the mylohyoid line we have the submandibular fossa for the lodgement of the submandibular salivary glands. So sublingual salivary glands above and submandibular salivary gland below. So both these fossas, the sublingual fossa and the submandibular fossa. So the brief about the attachments of the mandible, you see this is the incisive fossa for the origin of the mentalis and few fibers of the orbicularis oris muscle. This is the mental foramen for the mental nerves and vessels. The mandibular notch for the mesenteric nerves and vessels. This is the insertion of the masseter. This is the insertion of the medial pterygoid. This is the insertion of the lateral pterygoid, which is in the anterior surface of the neck of the mandible, which is called as a pterygoid fovea. And then we have temporalis muscle, which is attached onto the coronoid process. And then over here you have this mandibular fossa, through which passes the inferior alveolar nerves and vessels. This is the mylohyoid groove. For the this mylohyoid groove, it transmits the mylohyoid nerves and vessels. The mylohyoid line, it gives attachment to the mylohyoid muscle, and just above the posterior aspect, it gives origin to superior constrictor muscles of the pharynx and the pterygomandibular raphe. Mesenteric nerves and vessels, this is the mandibular notch over here. These are the superior and inferior genial tubercles, or the mental spines, which above superior genial tubercles gives origin to the genioglossus muscles, and the inferior genial tubercles, they give origin to the geniohyoid muscles. And then after that we also have after that, now let's move on to the ossification of the mandible. Now this is first of all the mandible, it develops from the first pharyngeal arch. This is the second bone after the clavicle to ossify in the body. So this is the second bone after the clavicle to ossify in the body. The greater parts of this mandible, it ossifies in the membrane, but remaining few parts which ossify in the cartilage, which involve the incisive parts. So this incisive part, the two processes, the coronoid process and the condyloid process, which also ossify in the cartilage, along with the upper part of the ramus, just above the level of this mandibular foramen. This also ossifies in the cartilage. So we have three parts: the incisive part, the two processes, the coronoid process and the condyloid process, along with the upper part of the ramus above the level of this mandibular foramen. They ossify in the cartilage. Now at birth, we have these two separate parts of the body of the mandible, which fuse in the midline and are covered by the fibrous tissue, or the which are covered by the fibrous tissue, which is called as symphysis minti. Now this fusion of this bony fusion, it occurs at about first year of the life, and you see the body of the mandible, the main center of the ossification of the body or of this either part of the body of the mandible, it begins at about 6 weeks of the intrauterine life. The mandible, it develops, so partially it develops in the membrane and partially in the cartilage. The most of its parts are developed from the fibrous membrane covering the outer surface of the Meckel's cartilage or cartilage of the first pharyngeal